My fiancé cheated with my brother, caught them and gave them what they deserved. All right, so here's how it all went down. It was just a regular Thursday. I remember that clearly. I had just finished a long day at work, and all I could think about was getting home, chilling out, and maybe watching some TV. Normal stuff. But man, I had no clue what I was about to walk into. If I had known, I probably would have stayed late at work or something, or maybe gone anywhere else, because nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I opened that door. So I get home, right? And the first thing I notice is that it's super quiet, which is odd because Claire's car was in the driveway. Usually she's playing some music or has the TV on in the background while she's cooking or something, so right away it felt weird. My gut was telling me something was off, but I was tired and just wanted to relax, so I ignored it. Big mistake. I open the door, throw my keys on the counter, and as I walk into the living room, I freeze. I legit stop dead in my tracks. There, right on the couch where Claire and I used to sit together every evening, is my brother Marcus and Claire, and they're not just sitting there. They're making out, full on, like I didn't even exist. My heart just dropped into my stomach. You ever get that feeling where your brain can't even process what it's seeing? Like it takes a second for reality to hit, because you're just standing there trying to figure out if maybe you're imagining it? Yeah, that was me in that moment. I must have stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably just a few seconds, trying to make sense of the absolute nightmare I had just walked into. But then the rage hit. I snapped out of it, and before I knew what I was doing, I rushed over to the couch and grabbed Marcus by his shirt. I yanked him off of Claire, and my first instinct was to punch him right there. I was shaking with anger. My fist was balled up so tight I thought I'd break my own hand. But then Claire, she starts screaming, begging me not to hit him. Can you believe that? She was more worried about him than me. Like, who cares that her fiancé, the guy she promised to spend the rest of her life with, just caught her cheating? No, her first thought was to protect Marcus. That just pissed me off even more. And then she says it, the words that will forever be burned into my brain. We've been thinking of a way to tell you for a while now. This isn't the first time we've been together. I swear it felt like the ground opened up beneath me, like I was free falling into some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She continued, please don't hate us, but we love each other. Love each other? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was so blindsided, I couldn't even respond right away. My whole world was collapsing in front of me. My fiancé and my brother, my own flesh and blood, and then she had the audacity to say, if you hurt him, you hurt me. That was it. Something inside me just broke. All the anger, all the shock, it just drained out of me. I felt hollow. I let go of Marcus and I just stood there staring at both of them, tears welling up in my eyes. I didn't know what else to do. There were no words for the kind of betrayal I was feeling in that moment. I turned to Claire, barely able to hold myself together, and through the lump in my throat I said, get out. That's all I could manage. I just wanted them both out of my sight. I didn't want to see them ever again. I didn't want to hear their excuses or explanations. They had already said enough. I was done. Marcus tried to say something, maybe to defend himself or whatever, but I cut him off. I said get out, I shouted, my voice cracking with all the emotions I was trying to hold back. Claire started crying like she was the victim in all of this, but I didn't care. I didn't have any sympathy left for her. Not anymore. They both left, and as soon as that door shut behind them, I collapsed onto the couch. The same couch I had just ripped them apart on, and I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It felt like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my relationships, was suddenly gone. I don't even know how long I sat there, just staring at the wall, replaying what had just happened over and over in my head. How could I have missed the signs? How long had this been going on? I trusted both of them. Claire and I were supposed to get married. Marcus was supposed to be my best man, for crying out loud. The betrayal was too much. My mind was racing, flipping between anger, sadness, and complete disbelief. It felt like I was drowning in my own thoughts, unable to make sense of any of it. I kept asking myself, how could they do this to me? I picked up my phone at some point, not even sure what I was going to do with it. Call someone? Text Claire and Marcus? Yell at them some more? But I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to reach out to anyone because I didn't want to talk about it. How do you even explain something like that to someone? Hey, my fiancé and my brother just ruined my life. Yeah, not exactly a fun conversation starter. After what felt like forever, I managed to pull myself together enough to get off the couch. I walked around the house in a daze, looking at all the little things that reminded me of Claire. Her shoes by the door, her jacket hanging on the coat rack, the framed picture of us on the mantel. It all felt so meaningless now. I grabbed the picture frame and threw it across the room, shattering the glass. It felt good to break something. At least it was a physical release of all the pent-up anger that was eating me alive inside. By the end of the night, I had packed up everything that reminded me of her. Every trace of her was gone from my house, just like she was gone from my life. But no matter how much stuff I got rid of, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered in every corner of my mind. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying the moment I walked in on them, over and over, like some kind of cruel nightmare I couldn't escape. I kept wondering how long it had been going on, why neither of them had the decency to come clean sooner. But most of all, I kept asking myself one question: how the hell am I supposed to move on from this? And honestly, I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that my life as I knew it was over, and I had no idea where to go from here. All right, so after that whole mess of catching Claire and Marcus together, I thought things couldn't get any worse. Turns out, I was completely wrong. You'd think after breaking off the engagement, they would have at least the tiniest bit of shame, right? Nah, they went in the opposite direction. It's like they went full throttle with the relationship. Like they didn't even care what they had done or how it affected me. It was honestly mind-blowing. A few weeks after kicking them out, I started hearing through the grapevine that they were dating publicly now. I couldn't believe it. Marcus and Claire, the same people who destroyed my life, were just out there acting like everything was totally fine. What made it worse is how they were all over social media, rubbing it in everyone's face. One day, my cousin texted me a screenshot of one of their posts. Marcus and Claire smiling together at some fancy beach resort, looking all happy and loved up. I felt like I was going to puke. The caption on the post? My better half. Can you imagine that? Better half. The level of disrespect was unreal. I stared at that picture for way too long, just letting the anger build up. It wasn't like I was still in love with Claire. I was done with her the moment I caught them. But seeing them flaunting it like this, like they hadn't just blown up my entire world, it hit different. To make it worse, the comments were all congratulating them. You two look so perfect together. OMG couple goals. Like, are you serious? These people had no idea what had really gone down. It felt like everyone was supporting their little love fest while I was left in the dust. I blocked Claire immediately, thinking that would help. But of course, I forgot to block Marcus. So a few days later, I'm scrolling through my feed, and there he is again. Another post. This time they're at some romantic dinner, all cozy with candles and wine. It was like they were going out of their way to show off. That was it for me. I blocked him too. I didn't need to see that trash every time I opened my phone. After that, I tried to move on. I focused on work, hung out with friends, and just tried to forget about everything. But even when I wasn't thinking about it, people kept bringing it up. It was like no matter where I turned, I couldn't escape this nightmare. Family members would call to check on me, asking how I was doing, and every time they'd eventually circle back to Marcus and Claire. Have you heard from Marcus? How's Claire doing? Are you okay? Like, come on, people, stop acting like they were the victims. I had to fake being okay all the time just so people wouldn't keep asking me the same questions over and over. I didn't want to keep talking about it. But eventually, I couldn't hold it in anymore, so I started telling people the truth about what I was going through. I told my friends everything, about how it felt like I was drowning in betrayal, how angry and hurt I was. They were awesome, honestly. They reached out to Marcus and told him exactly what they thought about him. They weren't going to let him get away with what he did, not without knowing how bad he messed up. I appreciated that, even though it didn't change anything. And as for Claire, I had no idea what she was thinking. She didn't even try to reach out to apologize or explain herself after that night. It's like she had just erased everything we'd been through. I was nothing to her now, just some obstacle she had to get around to be with Marcus. It hurt, but what could I do? Time passed, and while I was hoping this whole thing would burn out, it didn't. Marcus and Claire kept going strong. Months later, they were still together, and my worst fears came true. My parents, who were so mad at them at first, started to soften up. I remember one night when I was over at my parents' house, and my mom brought it up. She was acting all casual, like she was testing the waters. You know, I've been thinking, maybe Marcus and Claire really do love each other. They've been together for a while now. She said it like she was trying to convince herself. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own mom, the one who was furious at Marcus, was now making excuses for them? I snapped at her. Love each other? They tore my life apart, and you're just going to act like that's okay now? But she didn't back down. I'm just saying maybe it's time to move on. People make mistakes, James. Maybe we should try to forgive them. I couldn't even respond to that. I just sat there, staring at her like she was a stranger. Forgive them? After everything? It felt like a punch in the gut, like my own family was slowly turning their back on me. My dad didn't say much, but he didn't disagree either, which was even worse. Thanksgiving rolled around, and I really didn't want to go. I knew it was going to be awkward as hell, but my mom begged me to come. She pulled out the guilt card, it's family. We should all be together for the holidays. So, against my better judgment, I went. The moment I walked into the house, I knew I'd made a mistake. There they were, Marcus and Claire, sitting together at the table like nothing had happened. My mom, of course, had conveniently forgotten to tell me they were coming. The dinner was beyond awkward. Every time I glanced over, there they were, holding hands under the table like they were the star couple of some cheesy romance movie. I wanted to puke. My mom kept trying to steer the conversation away from anything that might cause drama, but it wasn't working. The tension was so thick you could feel it. And then, to make it worse, my mom started complimenting Claire. "She's been doing so well at her new job," she said, like we were all just one big happy family. Marcus chimed in, all proud, talking about how amazing Claire was. I just sat there, clenching my fists under the table, trying not to lose it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cut in, "Are we really going to sit here and pretend like everything's fine?" Everyone went silent. My mom gave me this pleading look like, "Please, not now," but I wasn't having it. Marcus, of course, had to say something. "Look, we know we messed up, but we're trying to move forward. Maybe you should too." That was it. I was done. I stood up and told them I couldn't do this anymore. I wasn't going to sit there and watch them play house while I was expected to just get over it. I left the house without looking back. After that, I stopped going to family events. I couldn't deal with the fake smiles and forced conversations. Marcus and Claire were out there living their best life, while I was left to pick up the pieces. And what made it worse? My own family was slowly starting to act like they were the victims, like I was the one holding onto the past too tightly. It was like a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from. And no matter what I did, it felt like I was the one being left behind. Update 1. Alright, so if you thought things couldn't get more ridiculous after Thanksgiving, trust me, it only got worse. After that awkward dinner, I basically cut off any real contact with Marcus and Claire. I wasn't going to family gatherings, and I avoided them like the plague. I figured, okay, if I distance myself, I can start to heal. But nope, that wasn't going to happen. Not with the way my family was acting. A few months went by, and I was doing my best to rebuild my life. I focused on work, started going to the gym more, tried to hang out with friends. Just anything to get my mind off the betrayal. And for a little while, it was working. I wasn't checking their social media, I wasn't asking about them, and I told everyone around me that I didn't want to hear anything about Marcus or Claire. I figured, out of sight, out of mind, right? But then, one random afternoon, I got hit with the news I never wanted to hear. I was just sitting at home, scrolling through my phone, and suddenly my family group chat starts blowing up. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it, because usually it's just my mom sending dumb pictures or my uncle making plans for some BBQ. But then I see Marcus's name pop up. And before I could even stop myself, I clicked on the chat. There it was. Marcus had dropped a bomb in the group chat. Not literally, but you know what I mean. He and Claire were moving in together. Not only that, but they were excited to start this new chapter of their lives. I swear my blood pressure must have skyrocketed at that moment. It wasn't just the fact that they were moving in together that hit me, it was the reactions. I scrolled through the messages, and one by one my family members were congratulating them. My mom, she was so happy for them and said she couldn't wait to visit their new place. My dad, he said he was proud of them for taking the next step. Even my cousin, who had been on my side before, sent a "Congrats, you guys deserve it" message. Deserve it? How could they deserve anything after what they did to me? I couldn't help myself. I started typing furiously in the chat. I told them all exactly what I thought, asking if they had completely forgotten what Marcus and Claire had done. I reminded them how they betrayed me, how they ruined my engagement, and now everyone was acting like it was no big deal. I let it all out. The chat went dead silent after that. I could imagine everyone reading my messages, sitting there in awkward silence, probably thinking, well, that's uncomfortable. My mom, of course, tried to calm things down, sending some message about how we're still family and it's time to move on. But I wasn't having it. I told them flat out that I wasn't going to support Marcus and Claire's relationship, not after everything that happened. Things got heated pretty fast after that. Some family members started jumping in, telling me to let go of the past, that everyone makes mistakes, and that I was being too harsh. It felt like I was the one in the wrong, like somehow I was the bad guy for not being okay with all of this. My uncle even said, "If they're happy, isn't that what matters most?" That was the final straw for me. I told them, if their happiness comes from stabbing me in the back, then no, I don't care about their happiness. After that, I left the group chat. I didn't want to hear from anyone anymore. It was clear that my family had made their choice, and it wasn't me. A couple days later, my mom called me. I didn't answer the first few times because I knew she was going to try and smooth things over, but eventually I picked up. She immediately launched into this whole speech about how she understood how hurt I was, but that Marcus was still my brother, and we needed to find a way to move forward as a family. I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just tired. I told her flat out, "Look, I'm not going to pretend like I'm okay with Marcus and Claire. I don't care how serious they are. I don't care if they get married tomorrow. They betrayed me, and I'm not going to support their relationship." She sighed like she was disappointed in me, but I wasn't going to let her guilt me into anything. She started going on about how holding on to grudges wasn't healthy, and how I needed to find a way to forgive them for my own sake. I cut her off and told her, "Mom, I'm not holding a grudge. I just know my worth. And if my own brother and fiancé couldn't respect me enough not to sneak around behind my back, then they don't deserve my forgiveness." She was quiet after that, and we ended the call on an awkward note. I knew she wasn't going to drop it, but I also knew I wasn't going to change my mind. It wasn't about being angry anymore. It was about respecting myself enough to not let people who betrayed me walk all over me. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. A few weeks after that phone call, I get this formal-looking letter in the mail. I thought it was some boring bill or whatever, but when I opened it, my heart dropped. It was a wedding invitation. Marcus and Claire were getting married. And guess what? The invitation wasn't just addressed to me, it was addressed to me as the best man. I couldn't believe the nerve of them. They really thought I'd stand next to Marcus on his wedding day? They thought I'd be okay with standing there, watching him marry the woman who was supposed to be my wife? It was like a slap in the face. I tossed the invitation in the trash and didn't even bother responding. But of course, the wedding drama didn't end there. A few days later, Marcus called me. He sounded all cheerful, like nothing had ever happened between us. He asked if I got the invitation and if I was excited for the wedding. I kept my voice calm, but inside I was boiling. I told him, "I'm not coming to your wedding, and you should have known that before you even sent the invitation." He tried to reason with me, saying how he wanted me to be there, how it would mean so much to him if I was the best man. He said something about how we were brothers and that brothers should always have each other's backs. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I told him, "You had my back, huh? Is that what you were doing when you were sneaking around with Claire behind my back? Was that having my back?" Marcus went silent after that. He knew he had no defense, no excuse. He mumbled something about how he was sorry, but I cut him off. I told him, "I'm not coming to your wedding, Marcus, and if you ever cared about me at all, you wouldn't ask me to." And with that, I hung up the phone. The wedding was in a few months, but I already knew I wasn't going. It didn't matter what my family said or how much they pressured me. I wasn't going to stand there and pretend like everything was okay because it wasn't. And honestly, I didn't care if they called me petty or stubborn. At least I knew I still had my self-respect. Update 2. Alright, so after the whole wedding invite fiasco, I thought maybe Marcus and Claire would finally get the message that I wasn't going to be a part of their little fairy tale. I ignored any other attempts they made to talk to me, and honestly, I was doing okay with just keeping my distance. I mean, it still sucked, but I was figuring out how to live without all the family drama weighing me down. But of course, that peace didn't last long. About a month after Marcus tried to convince me to be his best man, I got a call from my mom. I wasn't planning to answer because, honestly, every time she called, it was just more pressure about forgiveness and family. But something told me this one was important, so I picked up. She didn't even waste time with small talk. "James, you're coming to the wedding, right?" I couldn't help but laugh. It was like she didn't even hear me the last 100 times I said no. "Mom, I've told you already, I'm not going to the wedding. I don't know why you're still asking." She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "James, it's important. You need to be there. It's family. It's your brother's wedding." I could feel my patience slipping. "You know what else is important, Mom? Respect, loyalty, not betraying your own brother." There was silence on the other end for a second, and then she hit me with the guilt trip. "We just want everyone to be together. Marcus feels bad. Claire does too. They've tried to reach out. Can't you just come? For us?" I was so tired of hearing that same line. They hadn't reached out in any meaningful way. All they did was send me an invitation like that would magically erase everything they did. "No, I can't just come for you. You know exactly why I'm not going. If you guys want to support Marcus and Claire, fine, that's your choice. But don't expect me to just act like everything's okay." She started crying, which, I won't lie, made me feel like crap for a second. My mom's not a bad person, she just doesn't get it. I just don't understand why you can't forgive them. It's been months. They love each other. It wasn't right, but they didn't mean to hurt you. I had to bite my tongue to stop from yelling. They did hurt me, though. They knew exactly what they were doing. And if they really loved each other so much, why didn't they just break it off with me first? Why sneak around behind my back? She didn't have an answer for that. The conversation went in circles for a few more minutes, with her trying to convince me to come and me standing firm. Eventually, she gave up, and we hung up, both frustrated. I thought that was the end of it. But a few days later, my dad called. Now my dad's not one for long conversations or emotional talks. So when he called, I knew something was up. I answered, and his tone was different from my mom's, more serious. James, he started, we need to talk about this wedding thing. I rolled my eyes, already knowing where this was headed. Dad, I'm not coming. I don't know why everyone keeps trying to change my mind. He was quiet for a second, and then he said, Look, I get it. What Marcus did was wrong, but we're family. At the end of the day, that's what matters. I groaned internally. Dad, you keep saying family. But Marcus wasn't thinking about family when he went behind my back with Claire. Why is it on me to be the bigger person here? Why can't anyone see it from my side? I do see it from your side, he said, his voice softer than I expected. I know you're hurt, and you've got every right to be. But holding on to all this anger, it's only going to hurt you in the long run. Trust me, I've seen it happen. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I got where he was coming from. I didn't want to be bitter forever. But on the other hand, I wasn't just going to roll over and act like everything was fine. Dad, it's not about holding on to anger. It's about not letting people walk all over me. If I go to that wedding, it's like saying what they did was okay. And it wasn't. He didn't push back after that. He just sighed and said, I understand. I won't ask you again. Ask you. It should have felt like a victory, but instead, I just felt empty. I wanted my family to have my back, not just tolerate my feelings. But clearly, they were more interested in keeping the peace than actually standing up for me. Fast forward to the week before the wedding. I had gone completely radio silent with most of my family. I knew they were probably all talking about me behind my back, wondering why I couldn't just get over it. But I didn't care. I had made my decision, and I was sticking to it. Then, I get a text from Marcus. It was the first time he had reached out to me since the whole thing started, and honestly, I wasn't sure I even wanted to read it. But curiosity got the best of me, so I opened it. Hey man, I know things are messed up between us, but I really want you at the wedding. It wouldn't be the same without you. Can we please talk? I stared at the message for a while, debating whether to respond or just block his number. Part of me wanted to tell him off, to remind him of all the pain he caused. But another part of me, the exhausted part, just didn't want to deal with it anymore. In the end, I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to open that door again, not after everything he put me through. The day of the wedding came and went. I spent it alone, keeping myself busy with anything I could think of to avoid thinking about what was happening. I knew my family was all there, celebrating, acting like everything was perfect. I wondered if anyone even mentioned me, or if they were too wrapped up in their new happy couple. Later that night, I got a message from my mom. It was just one sentence. I wish you had been here. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Over the next few days, I tried not to think about it too much. I focused on work, on getting through each day without letting the anger consume me. But the truth is, it was still there, simmering under the surface. It wasn't just about Marcus and Claire anymore. It was about the fact that my family had chosen to move forward without me. They wanted me to be okay with everything, to forgive and forget, but they didn't seem to care about what it was doing to me. And that's when I realized I wasn't just angry at Marcus and Claire. I was angry at my whole family for making me feel like I was the problem, for acting like I was the one being unreasonable, for not standing by me when I needed them the most. That was the real betrayal. Update 3. So here's where things really took a turn. Up until now, I'd been trying to keep my distance, let things go, focus on moving on and all that. But after everything my ex-fiancée Claire and my brother Marcus put me through, there was a part of me that just couldn't let it slide. I'm not saying it was the healthiest thing to do, but after being stabbed in the back, I felt like I deserved a little payback. And honestly, it wasn't even that hard to pull off. I should probably back up a bit. So, Claire worked at a company where I had some connections. I never really thought about it much while we were together because why would I? But after everything went down, I started thinking about how much she had hurt me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't going to let her just skate by and live her happy little life while I was left picking up the pieces of mine. Marcus too. Both of them needed to face some consequences, and it wasn't like karma was doing its job anytime soon. Claire's job was something she loved to brag about. She was always talking about her important projects and how much the company relied on her. I never cared much before, but after all this, I remembered some of the things she had told me. Things about her boss, her coworkers, even some shady stuff that she and her team had done to cut corners on projects. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but now I had something to work with. Through my connections, I managed to get some of this info into the right hands. I didn't go into it thinking it would actually work. I figured maybe she'd get a slap on the wrist or something, but turns out her company took this stuff very seriously. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Claire had been let go. Apparently, the company was cleaning house, and she was one of the people they decided they didn't need anymore. When I found out, I couldn't help but smile. I mean, she deserved it, right? All that bragging about her perfect job, and now she had nothing. But what really got me was that she didn't even see it coming. She posted some nonsense on social media about taking a break to focus on herself, or whatever. But I knew the truth. And as for Marcus, well, I wasn't going to let him off the hook either. Marcus had a pretty cushy job at a place that, coincidentally, also had ties to some of the people I knew. I never thought I'd use my connections like this, but after what he did, it felt like justice. I found out through a mutual friend that Marcus had been slacking at work, missing deadlines, and just being generally lazy. He was always good at talking his way out of things, but this time I made sure his boss got the full picture. I dropped a few hints in the right ears, just enough to get people paying attention to Marcus's behavior. And it worked. They started keeping a closer eye on him, and it didn't take long for him to mess up big time. A project he was working on fell apart because of his negligence, and boom, he was out. Fired. When I found out, I felt this strange mix of satisfaction and disbelief. It wasn't like I had planned this all out in some genius mastermind way, but it all came together better than I could have imagined. And the best part? They didn't know it was me. To them, it probably looked like life was just kicking them when they were down. But I knew the truth. I had made sure they felt just a fraction of the pain they put me through. But I didn't stop there. See, after they both lost their jobs, they were still living in the apartment that Claire and I had originally planned to move into together. I had put down a lot of the money for that place, and when things fell apart, I let it go because, honestly, I didn't want to deal with it. But now it felt like the perfect way to finish things off. Turns out, Claire and Marcus were barely scraping by after losing their jobs. They were behind on rent, and the landlord was getting impatient. So I called in a favor from someone I knew at the property management company. Nothing shady, just a little nudge to make sure the landlord knew exactly who was responsible for the lease and that they were way behind on payments. A few weeks later, they were evicted. Homeless. I know, it sounds harsh, but after everything, I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. They had each other, didn't they? They could figure it out together. That's what they wanted, after all, each other. And now they had nothing else. No job, no home, no support from the family that they had so easily betrayed. And speaking of family, when they found out what happened, let's just say there wasn't a lot of sympathy to go around. My parents tried to act all concerned at first, but even they couldn't ignore how much Marcus and Claire had screwed things up. My mom, who had been all about forgiving and moving forward, couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay when they were calling her, asking for money and a place to stay. She called me one day, trying to get my take on the whole situation. "James, did you hear what happened to Marcus and Claire? They're really struggling." I played dumb. "Oh, really? What happened?" "They lost their jobs, and now they're being evicted. They asked if they could stay with us for a while." I almost laughed. The idea of them crawling back asking for help after everything? It was too perfect. "And what did you say?" I asked, knowing full well my mom wasn't about to let them move back in. She sighed. "I don't know what to do. Your father's against it, but I feel like we should help." I didn't even hesitate. "Mom, they made their bed. Let them lie in it." There was a long pause. I could tell she didn't like hearing that, but deep down, she knew I was right. After a few moments, she finally said, "You're right. I wish things had turned out differently." I didn't. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my life again. They had taken so much from me, my relationship, my trust, my family's support, but I wasn't going to let them take anything else. In the end, Marcus and Claire were left with nothing but each other, which, if you ask me, is exactly what they deserved. And as for me, I walked away with my head held high, knowing that sometimes karma needs a little push in the right direction. It might not have been the cleanest or most mature way to handle things, but after everything they put me through, I have no regrets. They got what was coming to them, and now I can finally move on.